Hey there, it's Jason from Codemanship with another video diary entry, complete with lockdown haircut number 3. Fingers crossed this is the last one. I ran a poll on the Codemanship Twitter account recently, asking developers how much time they see themselves spending in the office after the pandemic is over. Now, the results are by no means surprising. We kind of knew this was coming. But it really does look as if our industry is going to shift to a default sort of remote first mode of working after the pandemic. Like I said, no surprises there, but it's probably worth briefly discussing what the implications of this might be. For example, for the lifestyles of software developers, a lot of the developers I've been coaching and training over the last 6 months in particular, now they've kind of got wrapped their heads around remote working and what's going on here. They've had a sort of a light bulb moment and they've realized, I don't need to live near the office anymore. I can live where I like. So a lot of people have been leaving London, for example. I think they estimate about 700,000 people have left London in the last year. And I think after the pandemic, that effect is going to accelerate. I don't think it's going to slow down. I don't think we've seen the most of it yet, because there are a lot of developers who are biding their time, waiting to see how the dice are going to fall after the pandemic. If we really do shift to a remote first model in many industries, not just ours, then I think we're going to see a much bigger migration away from the cities. So it's going to have big implications for our lifestyles and big implications for cities and what they're for, and for offices and what they're for. I think offices will less be places we go to work and will more be places we go to meet, for example. But it also has big implications for me and for Codemanship. If most developers are working remotely most of the time, kind of stands to reason that most training and most coaching will need to be delivered remotely most of the time as well. So Codemanship is going to move to a remote first or a remote by default mode of working as well, a new business model. Before the pandemic, it was kind of 80-20, 80% of the time, I was doing training and coaching face-to-face. So I would get on a train or get on a plane or get in a car and come to you, and you would have to come to the place as well. But if they're not in the place, if they're not in the office, then that's going to have to change. This is good news for my carbon footprint. It's also good news for my time. A 3-day course in Sweden, for example, typically takes up 5 days of my time because there's travel at both ends. So in many ways, it's going to be positive. Also, over the last year, I've delivered training for impossible groups of people that it would be way too impractical and expensive to bring them together for face-to-face training. People based in places like Australia and Japan and the United States, for example. So we can have groups that are spread across the world, provided we can figure out the time zones. So it's going to open a lot of doors in that respect. And I've got to say, and of course I would say this, but you can always ask my clients, remote training is the same training. It's just as high quality as face-to-face training. So I think it's going to be not 80-20 face-to-face. I think after the pandemic, it's going to be 20-80. And I may well be changing the Codemanship pricing and the business model to gently discourage people from booking face-to-face training, because I think there are all sorts of advantages from doing it remotely. And as we get more used to this way of working and as the tools and the technology improve, I think that's just going to make more and more sense. So from the end of the pandemic onwards, Codemanship will be remote first. At the moment, of course, we're remote only for understandable reasons, but it seems to be working very well. And in terms of lifestyle, well, this is going to open doors for me as well. I've been based in London for 23 years, chiefly because of the, when I was a contractor, this was where all the work was, but running Codemanship over the last decade, mostly because of the transport links. London is a big transport hub. It's very easy to get to other places all around the world from London as your starting base. If that's only happening 20% of the time, then I don't need to live in London. So who knows, in the future, you may be getting video diaries recorded in a garden somewhere. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So this is going to change my life and it's going to change my business. There's every chance that it's going to change your life and the way that you work. I think it's mostly going to be a positive thing. I think the city centres probably need to brace themselves for becoming something else. They're no longer going to be places where people like us go to work a lot of the time. But I think after the dust settles, it's going to take a few years, but after the dust settles, I think this is going to be generally a positive thing for lifestyle reasons, for environmental reasons, for all sorts of reasons, for work-life balance reasons. So I think it is something we need to bear in mind. Like I said, we all know it's coming, but then we all knew that the third wave of this pandemic was coming here in the UK, and we still didn't prepare for it. So get prepared for this. This is going to be the new normal. And if you've not had your light bulb moment already, maybe it's time to start going online and looking at houses somewhere else, because I think this is going to be the way it is from now on.